When you pause and place your gaze upon yourself, you uncover a strength the world cannot steal. Breakthroughs are not gifts from others. They rise when you honor your spirit, your breath, your being. Focus on you, and the universe will whisper its blessings into your hands. The power of turning inward before reaching outward is a truth often overlooked in a world that glorifies noise, motion, and constant connection. We are taught early to chase recognition, approval, and love in the eyes of others, as though the treasures of our existence are scattered outside ourselves. Yet the greatest breakthroughs, the richest wisdom, and the deepest peace are not found in the applause of the world, but in the quiet sanctuary within. Before we can extend ourselves fully to others, before we can give love, wisdom, or strength in its purest form, we must first learn to meet ourselves with honesty, care, and reverence. Turning inward is not selfishness, it is alignment. It is pausing long enough to hear the whispers of the heart beneath the clamor of expectation. It is the courage to sit in silence when the world demands performance. In that silence, the soul speaks, reminding us that no title, no approval, no fleeting moment of validation defines our worth. Our worth is carved into us at birth, and only when we journey inward do we remember it. When a tree extends its branches to the sky, it does not begin with the leaves. It begins with roots, deep and unseen, anchoring it against storms and feeding its every extension. In the same way, human beings cannot truly reach outward without first rooting themselves in their inner soil. A hand extended to others without self-knowledge often trembles with insecurity. Words spoken without self-reflection can echo hollow. Even acts of love lose their depth when they come from a place of emptiness rather than fullness. The inward journey ensures that when we do reach outward, we reach with authenticity, with clarity, with strength that endures. The power of this inward focus also lies in healing. So often we move quickly to mend others while our own wounds bleed quietly beneath the surface. We give advice we do not live by, carry burdens we do not acknowledge, and pretend to be whole while quietly unraveling. Turning inward invites us to tend to those unseen places, to admit where we hurt, where we falter, and where we are still learning. It asks us to be gentle with our own becoming. And in that gentleness, we gather strength. We learn not only to live, but to live fully, so that our reaching outward is not a grasp for rescue, but an offering of truth. When we turn inward, we also meet clarity. The noise of the world will always tell us who we should be, what we should do, how we should look, and how we should measure our lives. It is 1,000 voices speaking at once, each one tugging at our spirit. But the inward gaze cuts through the clutter. It says, "You are more than what they call you. You are not bound to follow paths that dim your light. You do not have to carry labels that do not fit your skin." Inwardness is the art of reclaiming your own voice amid the chorus of others. This journey does not always feel comfortable. To turn inward is to confront both the beauty and the brokenness within. It is to face regrets, fears, and insecurities with the same honesty with which we celebrate our strengths. But therein lies its power. Breakthroughs are not born of denial, but of truth. When we look inward and acknowledge all of who we are, we free ourselves from masks. We step into authenticity, and authenticity is the birthplace of transformation. It is also from this rooted place that love becomes expansive. When we do not know ourselves, we love others with conditions, with hidden expectations, with the silent hope that they will fill the emptiness inside us. But when we turn inward first, we discover love as a wellspring already present. We begin to share love not as a plea for completion, but as a gift overflowing from within. We love without fear of loss because we have already found home within ourselves. To turn inward is to trust that your spirit is not lacking, that everything needed for the journey is already within. Reaching outward then becomes a choice, not a necessity for survival. You give, not because you are empty, but because you are full. You shine, not because you crave recognition, but because the light cannot be hidden. You speak, not because you seek validation, but because truth burns too brightly to be silenced. This is the rhythm of life. First inward, then outward. First roots, then branches. First silence, then song. The world may urge you to skip steps, to rush into the outward before you have met yourself. But pause, turn inward, let your roots deepen. And when you do finally reach outward, your offering will carry the strength of something eternal, something unshakable, something true. Self-awareness, as the birthplace of transformation, is a truth that echoes through every story of growth and every moment of genuine change. Nothing in life shifts with depth or permanence until a person sees themselves clearly. Transformation does not begin with the world bending to our desires, nor with others altering their behavior to suit us. It begins in that quiet recognition of who we are, our patterns, our wounds, our strengths, our blind spots. Self-awareness is not a casual glance in the mirror. It is a deliberate turning of the gaze inward, a courageous willingness to see both the light and the shadows that dwell within us. There is a sacred honesty in self-awareness. It is not about judgment, but about truth. When you begin to notice how you respond to life, how your heart tightens in fear, how your words sometimes betray your deeper feelings, how your habits may numb rather than heal, you step into the realm of transformation. Awareness unmasks the illusions we build around ourselves. It reveals where we have been hiding, where we have been avoiding, and where we have been longing to grow. It is only when you know the truth of your own being that you can begin the work of change. Without self-awareness, transformation remains surface level, a matter of appearances rather than substance. You can change your clothes, your surroundings, even your companions, but if you carry the same unexamined wounds and unchecked patterns, you will recreate the same life again and again. Self-awareness breaks that cycle. It shines a light on the choices that keep you bound, the fears that silence you, the doubts that stop you short of your potential. And once you see them, you cannot unsee them. That vision becomes the starting point of real, lasting transformation. There is immense courage in looking at yourself without turning away. It is easy to notice the faults of others, to critique their choices, to measure their missteps, but to turn that same gaze inward requires a bravery that not everyone is willing to embrace. Yet, it is in that honesty that freedom lies. To know yourself is to hold the key to your own liberation. It allows you to stop blaming the world for your unhappiness and begin taking responsibility for your joy. It allows you to stop waiting for others to save you and begin becoming the person who can save yourself. Self-awareness also breeds compassion. When you understand your own struggles, when you witness the inner battles you fight, the fears you wrestle with, the mistakes you make with good intentions, you begin to see others with softer eyes. You no longer demand perfection from them because you have recognized your own imperfections. You no longer dismiss their flaws as weakness because you know the weight of carrying your own. Transformation rooted in self-awareness is not only personal but relational, for it allows you to move through the world with both strength and tenderness. There is also a deep clarity that emerges from self-awareness. In a noisy world where so many voices tell you who to be, self-awareness becomes your compass. It shows you what truly matters to you, not what should matter, not what others insist must matter, but what resonates with the truth of your spirit. Decisions made from this place are not about pleasing others or performing roles. They are about honoring your authentic self. And when you live aligned with that truth, transformation ceases to feel forced. It becomes natural, inevitable, like the blossoming of a flower in its own season. Transformation born from self-awareness is not always dramatic or immediate. Sometimes it is subtle, like the way you choose not to react in anger, or the way you allow yourself to rest when your body whispers for pause. Other times it is sweeping, like the decision to leave behind a life that no longer reflects who you are becoming. In all its forms, it begins with the simple act of noticing where you are, noticing what you feel, noticing who you are in this moment. And from that noticing, change arises. The beauty of self-awareness is that it holds both acceptance and possibility. It invites you to accept yourself as you are without denial, while also reminding you that you are not fixed, not trapped, not limited to this single version of yourself. You are capable of growth, of shedding what no longer serves you, of becoming more fully who you were meant to be. Awareness is the spark, and transformation is the fire it ignites. So the path to transformation does not begin with striving outward, chasing endlessly for what the world can give. It begins with turning inward, with seeing yourself clearly, with daring to tell yourself the truth. It begins with self-awareness, the birthplace of every change worth making, the soil from which a new life grows. Letting go of external validation to embrace inner truth is one of the most liberating yet challenging journeys a person can take. From the moment we are children, we are conditioned to seek approval. A smile from a parent, praise from a teacher, applause from an audience. All these small tokens of recognition slowly weave themselves into our understanding of worth. We learn, often unconsciously, to measure our value through the eyes of others. And while validation may feel comforting, it becomes a cage when it dictates every choice, every dream, every step forward. True freedom, true peace begins when we loosen that grip, when we stop begging for permission to exist fully, and when we root ourselves in the truth that was already written within us. The danger of living for external validation is that it places your worth outside your control. It allows the world to hand you a crown one day and strip it away the next. It binds your joy to opinions that are fickle, inconsistent, and ever-changing. One person may call you brilliant, while another dismisses you as ordinary. One group may applaud your efforts, while another may criticize the very same work. To tether your self-worth to these shifting voices is to live on unstable ground, forever chasing approval that will never come in enough supply to satisfy the soul. Embracing inner truth, however, requires a turning inward. It asks you to listen not to the roar of the crowd, but to the quiet knowing that resides in your spirit. Inner truth is not concerned with applause. It does not depend on whether people understand or celebrate you. It simply exists, steady and unmoved, like the roots of a tree holding firm beneath the soil. When you begin to honor that truth, your steps grow surer. You make choices not because they will earn you praise, but because they align with who you are. And in that alignment, there is a peace that no validation could ever equal. Letting go of external validation does not mean you reject love or appreciation. It means you no longer need it to define your value. You can welcome kindness and encouragement, but they do not dictate your path. Your compass becomes internal, guided by authenticity rather than approval. And when you live this way, you begin to realize that the most beautiful moments of life are often unrecognized by others. The quiet victories, the silent growth, the inner shifts no one else may ever witness. Yet those moments are no less powerful. In fact, they are the very essence of transformation. This journey also calls for courage. It is not easy to stand firm in your truth when the world pushes against it. It is not easy to decline paths that others applaud, to speak words that others may reject, or to choose stillness when the world shouts for action. Yet that courage is the price of authenticity. Without it, we become actors in a play we did not write, performing roles that leave us empty when the curtain falls. With it, we become authors of our own stories, unafraid to let them unfold in ways that may not please everyone but remain true to the core of who we are. There is a quiet strength in knowing yourself without needing confirmation from others. Imagine the freedom of walking into a room without wondering who approves of you. Imagine creating, loving, and living without seeking an audience. Imagine being able to sit in solitude and feel whole, not because someone praised you, but because you know your own worth. That is the power of embracing inner truth. It makes you unshakable, for your foundation is not built on applause, but on authenticity. The world will always have opinions. Some will lift you, others will attempt to diminish you. But when your worth comes from within, those voices lose their power. You can receive criticism without collapse, and you can accept praise without becoming addicted to it. You understand that neither defines you. You define yourself, guided by the truth that no one else has the authority to rewrite. To embrace inner truth is to honor the quiet wisdom of your soul. It is to remember that your existence is not a performance, but a presence. You were not born to please the world, but to live the fullness of your own becoming. And when you let go of external validation, you discover that you never needed it to begin with. The truth within you has always been enough. It has always been the light, waiting for you to turn toward it, to trust it, and to walk in it without fear. And once you do, you realize that nothing the world offers, not praise, not approval, not recognition, can ever compare to the freedom of living as your true self. Healing begins when you prioritize yourself, when you finally give yourself permission to be more than the caretaker of everyone else's needs. Too often we are taught that to be worthy is to give endlessly, to exhaust ourselves in service to others, to silence our own aches so that someone else might rest easier. We wear selflessness as a badge of honor while carrying invisible wounds that deepen with neglect. Yet the truth is this: no one can pour from an empty vessel. No one can offer genuine love or strength while abandoning themselves. Healing does not arrive by accident or through someone else's mercy. It begins the moment you choose yourself. Prioritizing yourself is not selfishness. It is survival. It is remembering that you too deserve the same compassion you so easily extend to others. It is pausing long enough to acknowledge your own pain instead of dismissing it. It is allowing your body the rest it has been pleading for, granting your heart the silence it craves, and giving your mind the space to release the burdens it has carried for too long. Healing cannot take root in soil that is constantly trampled. It flourishes only when you create space for it, when you choose to stand still long enough for your spirit to breathe. When you make yourself a priority, you shift the way you move through the world. Instead of scattering pieces of yourself to satisfy others, you gather your energy back into your own hands. You learn to say no, not from cruelty, but from clarity. You learn to set boundaries, not as walls to keep love out, but as gates that protect the peace you are nurturing within. This shift is radical because it tells your spirit you matter, your well-being matters. Your joy is not optional. And the moment you embody that truth, healing begins to weave itself quietly into the fabric of your days. There is also a reclaiming of identity that comes with prioritizing yourself. So often people lose themselves in roles: mother, partner, friend, worker, caretaker, until their own name feels like a faint echo. When you begin to prioritize yourself, you remember that you are not only what you give to others, you are a whole being with dreams, with desires, with needs that deserve tending. This remembrance is not an act of defiance, but of restoration. It is you gathering the scattered fragments of yourself and piecing them back together into a wholeness that was always meant to be. Healing is not always a loud or dramatic process. Sometimes it is found in the smallest acts of prioritizing yourself, choosing to rest instead of pushing through exhaustion, choosing a nourishing meal instead of neglecting hunger, choosing solitude when your soul feels overwhelmed by noise. These small choices may not look like transformation to others, but to you they are lifelines. They are whispers of self-love, reminding you that healing is not a destination, but a practice, one decision at a time. There is great strength in choosing yourself in a world that often calls such choices indulgent. Society praises those who sacrifice endlessly while rarely celebrating those who turn inward and tend to their own hearts. Yet, the truth is that real strength is born not from depletion, but from restoration. When you heal yourself, you expand your capacity to love, to create, to serve from a place of fullness rather than emptiness. You become less reactive and more intentional. You carry peace within you, and that peace touches everything and everyone around you. Prioritizing yourself also means facing the parts of you that hurt. It is easy to stay busy, to distract yourself with work or relationships, to avoid the silence where your wounds might rise to the surface. But healing cannot come from avoidance. It comes from presence, from sitting with your own pain and saying, "I see you, I will not abandon you." It is in this act of self-compassion that the deepest transformations occur. You become your own caretaker, your own advocate, your own sanctuary. And from that place, the parts of you that once felt broken slowly learn to trust again, to open, to mend. The truth is, healing will never come if you are always the last name on your list. You cannot keep waiting for someone else to prioritize you. You must do it yourself. You must declare that your body deserves care, your heart deserves tenderness, and your spirit deserves rest. Healing begins when you decide you are worthy of being cared for, not someday, but now. And as you continue to choose yourself day after day, the wounds that once defined you lose their power, replaced by the quiet strength of someone who has finally come home to themselves. Growth requires courage to honor your own journey, for the path of becoming is rarely smooth, and it is never identical to the road walked by another. From the moment we step into the world, we are surrounded by maps that others have drawn, expectations of family, traditions of culture, pressures of society, and comparisons that whisper we should be further along or somehow different than we are. It takes immense bravery to set those maps aside, to look inward, and to walk the path that was carved only for you. Growth is not about chasing what is popular or pleasing everyone you meet. It is about listening to the quiet truth inside yourself and choosing again and again to honor it even when the world does not understand. Courage is the heartbeat of growth because change itself is uncomfortable. To grow is to shed old skins, to let go of identities that no longer serve you, to outgrow spaces that once felt safe. This shedding often stirs resistance within yourself and from those around you. People may question your choices or misunderstand your direction, but honoring your journey requires that you remain steady, knowing that your evolution does not need validation. Courage means allowing yourself to be misunderstood, trusting that your soul's unfolding is more important than anyone's approval. When you honor your own journey, you begin to see that growth is not linear. It is not a straight climb upward, nor is it marked by predictable milestones. Some seasons bring rapid blossoming, while others bring stillness that feels like waiting. There are moments when you may stumble backward before moving forward again, Without courage, these fluctuations may feel like failure. But with courage, you learn to embrace them as part of the process. You accept that your path will not look like anyone else's, and that its twists and turns are shaping you into who you are meant to become. The courage to honor your journey also means facing the shadows within you. Growth is not only about reaching toward light, it is about walking through darkness and refusing to stop there. It requires honesty about the fears you carry, the wounds you hide, and the patterns that keep you bound. To face these truths is not easy. It is far simpler to stay where you are, numbing the pain and denying the need for change. But growth calls you to more. It asks you to confront the parts of yourself that ache and to offer them compassion, to do the hard work of healing so that you can step into the fullness of your becoming. This kind of courage also asks you to trust your timing. In a world that glorifies speed and constant achievement, it takes strength to honor the pace of your own unfolding. Some dreams ripen quickly, while others require years of tending in silence. Courage means resisting the temptation to rush just to prove your worth. It means believing that even in seasons of waiting, you are still growing, still becoming, still moving closer to the life meant for you. To honor your journey is to trust that you are exactly where you need to be, even if the world insists you should be elsewhere. Growth also requires the courage to celebrate yourself along the way. Too often, we dismiss our own progress because it seems small compared to someone else's. But honoring your journey means recognizing that every step forward, every lesson learned, every boundary set, every act of self-love is worthy of acknowledgement. You do not need the world to cheer for you in order to know that you are moving. The quiet victories, invisible to others, are often the most profound. Courage is choosing to notice them, to honor them, and to keep walking. Perhaps the deepest courage of all is the willingness to keep going despite uncertainty. Growth rarely offers guarantees. The road ahead is often unseen, and fear whispers that it is safer to stay where you are. But honoring your journey means trusting that even without knowing the destination, each step is carving the way forward. It means leaning into faith, faith in yourself, faith in the process, faith in the possibility of a life aligned with your truth. Growth requires courage because it demands authenticity in a world that often rewards conformity. It asks you to risk rejection, to release comfort, to embrace change. Yet it is only through that courage that you truly honor your own journey. And when you do, you discover that the journey itself is the gift. Not the approval of others, not the illusion of perfection, but the simple, sacred act of becoming fully who you are meant to be. True breakthroughs are born from self-focus, not comparison, because no two lives are carved from the same mold and no two destinies unfold along the same timeline. Yet, in a world driven by constant noise and endless displays of success, it is easy to fall into the trap of measuring yourself against others. Social media, society, and even well-meaning voices around you create an invisible race. Who achieves faster, who shines brighter, who collects the loudest applause. But comparison is a thief, robbing you of peace and clarity, convincing you that your worth is tied to someone else's path. Breakthroughs, however, do not come from chasing shadows. They come from turning inward, from focusing deeply on your own growth, your own lessons, your own unique rhythm. When you compare yourself to others, you step away from your own truth. You begin to doubt your journey, to belittle your progress, to think that what you are doing is not enough simply because it does not mirror what someone else has achieved. But self-focus redirects that energy. Instead of asking, why am I not where they are? You begin to ask, am I further along than I was yesterday? That shift, subtle yet profound, transforms the way you grow. It roots you in authenticity, reminding you that your only true competitor is the version of yourself from the day before. Breakthroughs demand attention, patience, and commitment, things comparison cannot give you. When you fix your gaze outward, you scatter your energy. You spend more time watching others than tending to your own soil. But when you focus inward, you cultivate the discipline and presence needed for real change. You notice your habits, your thoughts, your responses, and you begin to refine them. You acknowledge your strengths and embrace your weaknesses as opportunities for learning. This is the work that births transformation. It may not be visible to the outside world immediately, but it builds a foundation that is unshakable. Self-focus also allows you to honor your own pace. Comparison breeds urgency, the desperate feeling that you are behind, that you must rush to catch up, that your life must unfold in sync with someone else's. But breakthroughs rarely blossom under pressure. They arrive in their own season, when the work you've been doing quietly within finally rises to the surface. By focusing on yourself, you allow your growth to unfold naturally. You begin to trust your timing, to see that your path does not need to look like anyone else's to be valid, valuable, and extraordinary. There is a sacredness in knowing that your journey is yours alone. Just as no two fingerprints are the same, no two breakthroughs are meant to be identical. What liberates one person may not be your liberation. What challenges another may not be your mountain to climb. Self-focus gives you permission to embrace the uniqueness of your path. It teaches you to celebrate others without losing yourself in comparison, to admire their victories while still tending faithfully to your own. And in doing so, you protect the energy required to birth your own moments of transformation. Comparison also narrows your vision. It convinces you that success looks only one way, measured by external achievements, wealth, or recognition. But when you turn inward, you realize that breakthroughs are deeply personal. For one person, a breakthrough may be walking away from a toxic environment. For another, it may be choosing to speak their truth after years of silence. For someone else, it may be finding joy in small moments after a season of grief. These moments may not be celebrated by the world, but they are no less powerful. By focusing on yourself, you begin to recognize the breakthroughs that truly matter to your soul, not just the ones that impress others. Self-focus also creates resilience. When you compare yourself, you are at the mercy of external outcomes. Who seems ahead, who seems better, who seems happier. But when you measure yourself against your own growth, setbacks do not feel like failures. They feel like part of the process. You begin to see mistakes as lessons, delays as preparation, and detours as redirections. This resilience fuels breakthroughs because transformation is rarely instantaneous. It is born from persistence, from showing up for yourself day after day, regardless of how far along others appear to be. The deepest breakthroughs come when you stop chasing someone else's definition of success and begin honoring your own. Self-focus clears away the noise, revealing what truly matters to you, what ignites your spirit, what aligns with your values. From that clarity, you make decisions that shape your future, not decisions meant to keep up with others, but choices that honor your truth. And when you live this way, your breakthroughs are not borrowed, not imitated, but deeply, undeniably your own. So the path to transformation is not found in comparison, but in self-focus. It is found in turning inward, nurturing your growth, and celebrating each step of progress. True breakthroughs are not about surpassing others, but about surpassing who you used to be. And in that journey, there is freedom, authenticity, and the kind of transformation that lasts. Every thread of this speech leads back to one unshakable truth. The journey of becoming begins and ends within. To turn inward before reaching outward, to embrace self-awareness, to release the need for validation, to choose healing, to honor your own growth, and to focus on your path instead of comparison. These are not separate lessons, but parts of the same truth. They remind us that life's greatest breakthroughs do not come from chasing the world's approval, but from listening to the quiet voice within that has always known the way. When you dare to prioritize yourself, when you choose authenticity over performance, when you honor the pace and shape of your own journey, you discover a strength that is steady, a peace that is lasting, and a transformation that is entirely your own. And in that place of wholeness, you no longer beg the world to see you. You simply rise, radiant and unshakable, carrying the light of your true self into every corner you touch.